Hello, and welcome to the Honest Property podcast with Rebecca and Ruth, your hosts.
We're sisters who have invested in property for the last 12 years. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about what we actually have in our portfolio. What do we actually have in our portfolio? Because there's a lot of people on the internet who are sharing a lot of valuable information, but they haven't really disclosed their experience. So we thought it would be really helpful for you to know exactly what it is we have achieved in those 12 years. And it's been a wild ride. But in that period of time, we've come to, there's going to be lots of phases throughout life where things are going to suit you better than they did before. And in this experience, we've definitely recognized what exactly it is that suits us the best now.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes some fumbling through all the options before you figure out what is actually working best for you.
Yeah.
So in this particular episode, we're going to cover our portfolio value, the number of tenants that we have, the number of ASTs. Are we? No.
I don't think it really matters. I don't think any of that really matters. Just say it doesn't really matter. I think it's just worth us just saying this is what we've got. This is how many we have of this, and this is how many of that. And it's a combination of all these things.
Yeah. So our portfolio is diversified. We don't have just one strategy under our belt. We have experience in loads, and we have our obvious favorites. And I think we keep reiterating, if you've seen our other podcasts or other forms of content on Instagram, we have a clear favorite,
Buy-to-let. So when we started, we did start with HMOs, which we've already said in a different podcast, and it was the one that we learned in our it's the one that we learned during our property course, was to do HMOs. And so we were very hands-on with that, and in the beginning, 3 of the properties that we had were HMOs.
Yeah. We got them within 2 years, those 3 properties.
Yeah. And then because we were also doing a pet care business at the same time, we waited to refinance. We were waiting to refinance. So nothing is get rich quick. Everything is... We are very much promoting sustainable growth.
However, at the time, we benefited a lot because the interest rates were really, really low.
Yeah.
At the time. So we were basically financially free from then.
Yeah.
But that isn't the case at the moment because, it's not as easy to be as financially free as it was back then because obviously the interest rates have risen.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were definitely benefiting from like 2%.
2%, yeah, and even under, it was
sometimes like 1.75.
Yeah,
it was so good.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
It was a good
and we
time.
took it for granted, admittedly.
Yeah.
We were like,
we were young.
It's gonna last forever.
We were young. We took it for granted, but we do believe in sustainable, slow growth. In our 20s, we started a pet care company, which we loved, and we spent a lot of our time traveling, which you should do in your 20s, getting lots of life experience.
Be around animals and be outside. That was basically the goal, and we did it.
Yeah. So we made sure that we started investing early on so that we could have all these life experiences. And so we had 3 HMOs that was making us very, very good money.
Yeah, it was all we needed at the time. I think we were making basically like 30 something K. Pet care business was doing really well.
Yeah.
I think that was making around 30k independently at the time, and then our property businesses were doing the same. So between us, we were
making a good living in our 20s.
Yeah, it was good. It meant that when we were traveling and we weren't in our business, our pet care business, we were still getting an income because our properties were in the background still housing people.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of property. I think that's the thing. When we first started getting into property, we basically picked it because it was either going to be stocks and shares of property that we knew that was going to build our wealth. And we picked focusing our energy into property because it sounded less boring than stocks and shares at the time. I advocate both, to be honest. But we truly experienced the magic of property when it meant that we we could go on holiday and we were still getting paid the rent. That was the big shocker for us at the time, that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
We can, now that that property is set up, bought and running and all done, and someone's living in it, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
So that's why we love property. And then and then when it came to refinancing and seeing the value, the way that you can just make a property at a good standard again, and then refinance it and repeat it, that is the magic of property.
Yeah.
And that's why we're really pleased that we have picked property. Stocks and shares is great, but property means you can it comes with its work and its risks, but it means you get paid now and you're more in control of the asset and you make the decisions, and we really like that.
Yeah, definitely. And then
Okay,
moving on,
we
then had money to we refinanced our properties, and we then decided we wanted to grow our portfolio. And I think this was before COVID hit, or during COVID actually, wasn't it? And that was a little bit of a setback, but we did manage to buy 2 flats at the same time.
Yeah, we did.
We bought 2 flats, 2-bed flats at the same time
in the city centre of Bristol.
Yeah, because we were actually very tired with HMOs, and we were trying to continue buying continue HMO housing, but at the time there was a lot of hate towards landlords. There wasn't any rights. That we felt a bit,
we just kept seeing in the media a lot of landlords being vilified, and it made us feel like
oh no.
And then we had an experience with a tenant who
stopped
paying rent, and another tenant who made us tried to make us feel bad or uncomfortable about the fact that they
wanted to live there for free.
Yeah, it was just a lot, and how we should feel bad for charging rent. It was very strange,
and I think a lot of other landlords at that time were also feeling like the government aren't helping. They're only helping the tenant side, but what about the landlord side? And so we thought, let's do something else.
Let's try something else.
Something to feed our creativity. And so we did so much research, so much due diligence into looking at how to set up service accommodation. And so that was the route that we wanted to go in. And so we set up 2 properties from our refinance money to buy 2 properties in areas that we knew that was going to be
performing
really well.
And if it's in the city centre, whether it's a long-term let or a short-term let, you're bound to have strong interest. So, and we'd never done flats before. So we were thinking, I mean, the closer you are to a city centre, generally the more expensive the properties are. So it was more affordable for us to buy a flat as opposed to a house. We've got a whole separate opinion about flats versus houses. If you want to hear about what we think of those, the difference, then let us know in the comments or in our Instagram DMs, and we'll make a podcast especially devoted to that.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, actually, my husband and I bought a flat together as our first property, and then we decided to rent that out too. So that's part of the portfolio as well. So we really liked service accommodation because it really filled that need, that void that we weren't getting from HMOs anymore.
It made us feel less anxious because it meant that if you have a guest staying as opposed to a tenant, it's much easier to have if a tenant is acting out of sorts and being disrespectful or damaging to the property or your bank account, then it's much harder to relieve yourself of that situation. It can take months and it can be quite expensive to sort out legally. Whereas if you have a guest in the property, this is why I think a lot of landlords started doing service accommodation, is because there was more control in the situation, knowing that there's no contract really that's signed. They're just a guest and they're going to vacate within a matter of days anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you're under pressure or what's the words? You don't feel like you're at risk of being hard done by somebody who is going to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
So that's what appealed us to serviced accommodation. And I'd studied geography with tourism, and Ruth studied fine art. So we just thought, this is an interesting way to apply the degrees that we don't use.
Yeah. So we wanted to continue doing property but still make it fun. And I think managing tenants became no longer very fun just because of the media.
Yeah. Okay, so then
we got a cottage with an annex.
We bought a cottage. And that was different because everything that we've done has been in the city, whereas this particular property
was further out.
Was like in the countryside.
Yeah.
And the main intention with that property was for it to be a serviced accommodation. So we wanted to try a serviced accommodation, an Airbnb essentially, that was more of an experience as opposed to something that was for urban dwellers, city goers. We wanted to, it was like right next to hiking paths and trails and canoeing and a river and all these sort of outdoorsy things, which I think just made us feel I guess it was more of a passion thing, wasn't it? Because we love the outdoors, and it would just be nice to have something under our portfolio that sort of fitted well with who we are really as people.
And also because there were 2 dwellings as well.
Yeah.
It meant that we could definitely maximize the property. So that was a big...
So it was a cottage with a separate annex on the side. And it was like, we felt like, we're getting the value of 2 properties for one price. And we did get that on a really good price, actually. We negotiated a really good deal with that. I think we got like 50k off that property.
It was like 35.
Is it 35?
Yeah.
35 grand off.
Yeah.
It had a lot of work. It was like a 200-year-old cottage. But yeah, it was a fun project.
Yeah, and we've increased the value a lot.
Yeah. So we're thinking of... title splitting that and then refinancing it to recycle again, but we'll see.
And so then we started thinking about what do we want from our life. I had a baby and we thought, okay, I think it's time, I think we're ready to let go of our beloved pet care company because it, as much as we loved it, it was no longer serving what we wanted from our lifestyle anymore.
It was the best job in the world.
The hardest thing for us to give.
We raised these puppies into dogs, and we've been part of those families for like a decade. And it was
also
really hard
by having the HMO properties in the beginning of our journey in property, it allowed us to be able to do the pet care company, have a pet care company and work in a job that we genuinely loved. And that we know people that go into property later on in life and, you work up a corporate ladder, you earn like a great income from that. But we always wanted to pursue a career in something that we really, really loved, genuinely loved doing, and I have no regrets.
It also meant that we felt like we've never been employable to this day. I don't think that experience of having our own business and then building up our investment.
Learned so much about business and with having clients, and it was such a great learning. It was a great learning ground for ourselves to be able to run a business alongside of investing at the same time. So really, really grateful for that experience. And but it came a point where
the limits of that business was that it meant we were very location dependent, and we still had to turn up at a certain time to collect the dogs and take them away. And it also meant that our highest period of demand was during holiday seasons, which meant that we weren't as readily available
And even with having staff
to spend
as
time
well,
with family.
we're not very good at people management.
We know that now about ourselves.
Yeah, I know that now. Because we've been so used to, for a long time in our business, we were so used to doing everything ourselves. We just, for too long, did everything ourselves. And so when it came to having staff, it wasn't a thriving ground for us. So what's my point? Oh yeah, so we got to the point where I had a baby as well, and having a child really makes you question everything in your life. And one was that, do we really want to continue the business that we've loved for so long? I think it's time
in the same place.
In the same place.
Like, it meant that we weren't ever able to leave the location, because that kind of business depends
all
on
our clients were in that location,
one locality.
So we said, okay,
we don't want to be
we've got to make a
limited by
really
that.
difficult decision, and we sold our company, and that was hard, but we knew that was the catalyst for us to go, okay, I think we're gonna go into
full-time into property. Well, it was the most logical next step. And the way
also it was because of COVID as well, because COVID stopped us from being able to run our passion business. So that was also okay, we need to really start thinking of what's going to give us that location.
The thing that continued running during the pandemic was our properties. And we were like, okay, this is the most sustainable thing that we can do, that offers the most freedom. Let's just dial in on property. So
we started learning how to do rent to SA.
Yeah. I mean,
since we weren't able to refinance our properties in the meantime, we thought, our existing properties in the meantime, we thought, okay,
we've got a smaller pot of money. How do we maximize this? And RTA, rent to service accommodation. So rent to service accommodation, just to sum it up, is basically you agree with a landlord that you are going to manage their property for them. You essentially become the corporate tenant. You have a lease agreement, commercial lease agreement with the landlord. Everybody's in the know, and you manage guests that come in and out of the property. So you basically are now in charge of all the bills, gas, water, electric,
etc.
all of them, and the rent, and then it's your responsibility to make your profit is the margin between what the guests pay you and all the running costs. So basically it's like operating a small hotel. This is exactly what companies like Premier Inn do. They rent they lease a building, a property.
It's a service.
And then you have a 24/7 hospitality business within it. So we thought, and the threshold to be able to get started in that kind of business is quite low.
Is low, yeah.
Compared to any other strategy. And at the time, we didn't have as much money yet to be able to reinvest in the next building that we would, next property that we would own. So like, in the meantime, let's do hospitality.
Yeah.
Basically. So we then... when Ruth and I really want to do something, we throw ourselves into it full on. So in the space of a year, we got 5. Was it 5 or 6?
So maybe. Oh, I don't know.
I feel like we got one every other month.
Yeah, we did.
It was a combination of sourcing ones ourselves, and then using a sourcer to source the other ones.
Yeah.
And they were all between Cardiff. Yeah, our goal was I think our goal was 6, and we did it.
Yeah, and we hit our target. But I think that's when, in all honesty, our shiny penny syndrome came.
We didn't realise
we'd fallen into... I think naturally Becky and I are quite like how to say it?
Laborious. Because pet care business was very physically intensive.
You're outdoors, you're doing stuff with your hands, and we really thrive and love feeling like we're working
getting a bit
hard,
stuck in,
but I don't know if that's also a bit of a with our own money blueprint of trying to working. I know it's been instilled. Is that the right word? It's been.
I think it's a multi-layered thing. I think it's a generational thing. It's
for a long time. It's always work hard. Otherwise, what
are you doing? Yeah.
What are you doing?
What value do you offer if you're not working? And like a self like devaluing thing if you're not working. And if you're self-employed, people think that it's easy for people to come up to you and be like, oh, do you mind like going for a coffee, or do you mind, or shall we go on a holiday? And it's like,
But
but
you
just
must be
because you're
free.
you must
Yeah.
be free all the time. So if you're self-employed, it's like you have to stick up for yourself, and that, like, it's hard to establish your own boundaries with people. And so I think what happened to me, at least, is I fell into
Yeah.
feeling like I have to look like I'm working on something all the time,
All the time.
so
No,
that
yeah.
people didn't feel like,
Like
they
they-
could access my time in the day when I'm trying to build something. And even if I want to do nothing because I'm just trying to like rest and re-energize
Yeah.
to continue, because that's totally on my terms to do, and it doesn't have to be on a normal 9 to 5
Yeah.
schedule.
But we kept going into,
just kept
well, we
going.
have to work from 9 to 5. Actually, it was more like it was a lot earlier, and then we were working so many
much.
hours.
Yeah, way more.
So many hours, and it's difficult, especially as a business owner, to switch off because you constantly feel like you're in demand. And
when you're learning new skills like rent to
Yeah.
SA, so rent to service accommodation, it was, when you're learning anything new, it's like 3 times more effort, 3 times more of your energy
Yeah.
when you're learning something.
So I go in the bath and go, oh, I have a relaxing bath, and then I can't help but continue learning from my phone.
What's going on? Let me
Don't
watch
bring
this
your
YouTube video.
don't bring your phone into the bath, because Becky and I will go, okay, let's finish work now, and then we'd end up researching. Like, we just couldn't stop.
Continuous learning. I actually, you know what? I don't. There's it's when it's being aware, self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I thrive, and I really do enjoy what we do. So I'm genuinely interested,
Yeah.
and it's a genuine passion of mine to continue learning. But I think when you're under a state of pressure, or you're under a state of, I have to do this to feel like I'm worthy, or I'm busy, and be validated by the people around me so they do understand that I'm working, that's when you need to like check yourself and be like,
Yeah.
no, you're allowed
To rest.
But
But it wasn't until I had a child that I really realized that
you're forced to
I
rest.
couldn't not even rest. Like, you're also having a child is another
Yeah.
job, and it is exhausting. That was, yeah, it really was a catalyst of going, we need more time for rest so that we can enjoy life.
Yeah. And then our rent to service account. So at this point we had 14 properties, basically a 50-50 split of owned properties and properties we were managing for other people running a hospitality business.
Yeah.
And we did try and leverage that all as much as possible by having management companies,
Because that's what we've done with our own portfolio.
but it wasn't enough, because with serviced accommodation you have to go in every couple of years and refresh the property.
Yeah.
And
So we didn't realize
we didn't factor it in.
We didn't.
It's not a set and forget it like it is with a
No,
buy-to-let.
no.
I mean, you have to go in, obviously, to refresh the carpet and the walls and everything.
It's a full-on business.
But it's nowhere near as much as a serviced accommodation. You're not replacing or fixing things anywhere near as much. And
because
even if
people
you
are
have,
making it a home.
yeah, and even if you have a management company, there's still a lot more to address. It's not that bad, but it's still enough for you to feel like, okay, if this keeps building, then this is still going to take up my time. I'm still going to have to order new things, or like pay for more repairs, because that property just requires a lot more attention. You can't have a cupboard door that's a little bit wonky. Like, those things don't fly when it comes to service
Yeah.
accommodation. The attention to detail is much higher. And we had a mixture of experiences with upset neighbors and just guests. I think the guests were all right, actually.
Yeah, I guess we're fine.
guess
But
we're fine.
actually, to be completely transparent as well, having guests, because we went away from HMOs because of I'm trying to say, we went away from HMOs because of all the the tenant rights happening, and there was nothing really for the landlords. So we thought, oh well, guests would be a great way to deal with all of the issues. And then guests are actually pretty demanding.
Oh
But
yeah,
this is why
you have to answer them like within hours. It's a 24/7 service.
And so that's why we really value having management for doing service accommodation. So
So the reality of that with when it comes to rent to service accommodation, after analysing how well these properties had done over a year, we did have some rent to service accommodation properties that did really well, but it wasn't sustainable. It was like we had a particular guest that would pay a big chunk at the time, and then they left. So it wasn't a dependable income for us. And when we broke down the cost of management, the cost of all the bills, we didn't really profit from rent to service accommodation.
Yeah. So this is why
it was a hot training ground, though. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, it was a training ground for us to realize that we needed to pivot our own portfolio into what was going to give us what we wanted from life, which was the freedom and the time. And I'm so glad we went through that full experience, because it's taught us that we don't need to, like, we firmly believe in, it's about quality over quantity. And if we can acquire less but better yielding properties, that's the goal. Like I don't know, I think it's a lot of flaunt online that says, oh, you've got to have all of these properties and then like that's so impressive. But really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the numbers. And if you have less properties but they're doing really well,
I'd rather that,
because that's less management and less to have to to keep updating. And just less work. And we spent so much of our working business life working hard, like working really hard, and we're quite frankly quite tired in our 30s, and I've had a kid and might have another one, and I don't want to work harder.
I'd rather put my energy into
acquiring
time with loved ones.
Time with loved ones, having it continue to have experiences. Because what the hell is the bloody point in living? Oh, sorry, man, I say that. Sorry. What's the point in living if you can't actually live life and you're spending your whole time trying to
make a business,
run
around it? No.
Yeah, it's just
well, personally, no. There's nothing wrong if you are able to achieve a healthy work-life balance and you are happy clocking out at a certain time, and you know you're going to see a family at the end of the day, you're going to get to go on holidays, and you have learned how to invest in assets like property along the way. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I was envious of people who are able to clock off of work and not have to think about it, because when you have your own business, it's totally on you. But I think the trap here in property that we're seeing is that people want to get into property with the idea that they know they need to get into property because it's going to make them financially better off. But the difference is there's going to be a lot of things you'll see online that are going to be like, this is one way to get into property, but it's a property business. And a property business is just that. It's a business, and you're going to have to take on everything that comes with being an entrepreneur. And that means lack of sleep. You're going to be totally responsible for growing that. If you're going to manage people, you're going to have to manage people. And that is not freedom.
No, so it's just especially if you've got another job. Or another business that you're running, and that is not freedom. You have to leverage. Like, we burnt out. Just don't. I don't want anyone.
We want to promote people to have time and location freedom, and the best way to do that is to putting your energy and efforts into assets that you own. And then pay someone to manage them for you. That is what we want to promote. If you want to start a property business, go for it, but do it because you're genuinely interested and want to.
And you want to leave your other job,
and you know what you're signing up
business
for.
So we want
to use it as a training ground, so you know what to do. If you're going to have your own service accommodation that you're going to pay management to do, you could do it yourself as a business and then leverage off of somebody else or training someone else to do it for you. But know that it's going to be a lot of work, and it's a 24/7 business.
I also want to clarify as well, is like, if you are looking to grow your own portfolio and you don't, in reality, not everyone has access to angel investors who have a lot of money, and like signing up with an angel investor, you need to really trust each other. It's like a marriage, and you don't want to just
buy property with just you don't get married to just anyone. You need to have a trust there.
That's like it's a serious legal contract, and
Yeah.
we don't take it lightly. And you know, Becky and I, at the end of the day, we pursued a passion business that didn't mean we were high flying bankers. So we decided to grow our portfolio sustainably and in a way that suited our lifestyle.
Yeah. So all of our properties are in the southwest. So they're in Bristol, Cardiff, or Gloucestershire. And the thing is with the southwest, yes, they're more expensive, but the yield is really, really good in the southwest. So even though we don't have hundreds and hundreds of properties, we've got 8 properties that we own, and collectively they're worth 2.1 to 2.3 million. And like we said before, we are not saying this to gloat. We just want you.
I mean, there are people who have been doing only property from when we started, and we used to compare ourselves. And I think it's worth saying that, you know, there are people who have more money in a job that they do, and so they're able to put more money into growing their portfolio faster, or they've been doing property for 10, 12 years and only doing that, so they've had all the energy to put into that, or they have access to borrowing a lot of money to be able to grow a portfolio. So we wanted to go into property full time, and we thought the only way to do that, whilst we were waiting for our money to refinance the properties that we own to then go into the next property, was to grow with Rent to SA. And have realized now that actually isn't the direction we do want to go in. It was, in all honesty, a shiny penny strategy for us, and it completely took us away from focusing on our own portfolio, quite frankly.
Yeah. So even though we have built a sizable portfolio between us now, we are so much surer than ever of making sure we remain focused on that. I'm just sharing this because we want you to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is why, I don't know, I feel like on our Instagram, at least, we keep saying, be careful of shiny penny syndrome, just because we fell for it. And even though we learned so much from doing rent to serviced accommodation in the last year, lots of invaluable information, I think that would not be the route that I go down. We are definitely going to continue doing serviced accommodation.
Yeah, but we're doing it in a different way.
We'll be doing it in a different way.
In a unique way.
We'll see.
Yeah, so we'll be planning that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
in the meantime, we're going to continue growing a buy-to-let portfolio.
Oh yeah, so
the southwest of England and Wales, because we appreciate the yield.
We appreciate the yield, and we appreciate that it is a strategy that we know is going to give us our time freedom back, and which was the whole goal in the first place. We're trying to use our 30s, this time in our 30s, to really unlearn working to burnout and actually work way smarter.
Yeah. And the most passive form of property investing is buy to let.
So, you know, we think
it's really important that you get information from experienced investors who've made the mistakes, or who have done the things that you can learn from, so you don't replicate those problems or spend money on those problems again.
Or have a lot of stress along the way.
But then again, you might not relate to us. You might relate to somebody else who really works well under having lots of things to do and big goals and thrives in their own business. But if you're looking for sustainable growth, so you can get your time and location freedom back, that's what we're all about.
Yeah. You know, you can really enjoy your own job or if you have a business, but we 100% believe in putting your money into assets instead of leaving it in the bank. Like, we really, really do believe that. And
also beware of online when people say, I've got this many properties. They might not be owned properties, they're managed. So the profit isn't going to be the same. The workload isn't going to be the same.
Yeah, because we've seen people that have put that their portfolio is worth this amount, but actually they are just managed, they're not owned.
Yeah.
So just, I think like
Take that with a
people
pinch of
should,
salt.
people be
Honest
aware.
people will define the difference between owning and controlling a property.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Yeah.
people, there are good people out there that do, who are transparent, and they do say we control this amount of a portfolio, and that's being honest.
Yeah. And your net income is the only thing that matters. Even if you own your property, what are you paying? How much are you actually taking home after you've paid your tax, your mortgage, and any other bills?
Yeah.
So yeah, what do we actually have in our portfolio? We have about 8 properties owned in the southwest, and
Yeah, and we're just now looking to just grow our own portfolio. We're no longer going to be doing any shiny penny things anymore.
no, and then we'll have a passion project that's serviced accommodation. That is the plan for now.
That's our
Subject to
plan.
change, because the only thing that constant is change.
Change.
But for now, that's where we stand. So yeah,
So
our portfolio is that.
our portfolio
I
is
hope that
that.
clarifies things, and we just want to, like we say, keep things honest, because that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and so we
have
just
some transparency. We don't mean to gloat or anything like that.
No.
We just want people to get value from our experience,
Yeah.
so they can see where we've come from, what we've done,
and if you relate with our story
or our philosophy,
or
and
philosophy, then
values, then
yeah, there's just so many people doing it many different ways online that you can see, and
there's many different shades of wealthy. Just
Yeah.
find the shade that you want to be like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our mission now in property, so we've sold our company. Our mission now is not to continue growing our rent to SA portfolio, but a part of our managed, but not to continue growing with the rent to SA direction. We're going to continue just refinancing and building our own portfolio
Mm-hmm.
sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to our mission now is to actually help people do the same, learn from our mistakes, and not
We want to
For-
represent people who
Yeah.
are like us, who are a bit more nature minded, who want sustainable growth, who aren't in a state of. We're looking to connect with people who understand that sustainable growth
has
is
always stood the
slower,
test of time.
and that will last you the test of time. And they're not looking to make money quick. There's no get rich quick.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
And that
Yeah.
you just acquire more problems really fast,
Yeah, and then you learn from them and wish
and then wish that
didn't
you
do
never
it.
did that. So just don't
Just
don't do that. So I might have
We've been having
a
matcha.
green tongue because we're having matcha, but I just want to clarify that if you relate with us, then we really just want to promote stable growth instead of
Yeah.
anything get rich quick,
Mhm.
because it really doesn't exist. And if you're trying to, you're gonna stress yourself
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah. So we just want to help people now, teach people how to
Mm.
do it.
People have continuously asked us how.
Yeah,
on
we've
earth.
had
And so now we're like, okay,
we
we're
have
gonna.
had a lot of people continue to ask us what we do and how we've done what we did, and so we want to create a space where we can show people how to do what we've done sustainably, which doesn't mean you need to leave your job. You don't
No,
need to leave,
no
to
pressure to
quit
do
your
that.
business. There's no pressure to do that. And I think there's a lot of people online who
Shame
shame people for
Yeah.
being in their 9 to 5 or having or being in a not doing property full time
or not being an entrepreneur.
not being
you
an
don't have to do
entrepreneur.
those
And
things.
you know, in our own experience, we definitely, and I know I have felt like, oh, we should have been further than we are. We should have been further than we are, because in the property space online, there is so much.
I got million
gloat.
properties in 1 year, and it's like,
Yeah, I mean, like, good for them. Like, good for them. But we stayed true to ourselves, and we wanted to live our 20s enjoying a passion business we absolutely love that allowed us to be outside and nature every single day, make amazing relationships with our clients, and also be able to travel and spend our 20s traveling and having more experiences that way. And now our 30s is our time where I've had a kid and we now are ready to go into property full time.
Yeah. Because I want to carry on traveling.
And what if it takes, as long as like the numbers work with our own portfolio and our properties, then and I'd rather the sustainable growth and help people to do it and to be able to do the same.
Yeah.
Just very tired of the
hustle culture.
whole hustle culture, and
being like, we've been sucked into it, and now we just want to share, like, you don't need to.
You don't need to.
No. Yeah.
Do it on your terms.
That is what our portfolio looks like. We've had experience in all the different strategies.
And just a conclusion is it's not about how many properties you own.
It's the quality of the properties. And do they give you back your time freedom and your location freedom, if that's what you're after? Because that's our goal. And if you're on the same... if that's your goal too, then welcome. Stick around, because we want to stay connected. But yeah, that's it for today. If you have any questions for us, ask us on our Instagram DMs. That is probably the best place. Or pop a question in the comments box if you're on YouTube down below. And we look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.
Bye.